Chapter 7. Farina. They had left him to sweat it out. Tom was distantly aware that outside it was an unusually warm autumn's day, but here on his cot he was shivering as if he was living through midwinter. The fever had come on fast. He was an easy victim, no doubt. Low in mood as much as physically run down, Peter's death had hit him hard. After the accident, Tom had moved around in a daze. As he carried out his duties, he felt like his mother, going about his tasks from memory. Now he knew what it felt like to have someone watching you with a frown, the same expression he had worn while he waited for his mother to come back from wherever she went in her thoughts. Had she suffered some sort of trauma to make her like that? There was so little focus. He tried hard to shake himself from the malaise, but he had begun to feel convinced that something sinister had caught up with him and taken advantage of his weak state. Right now, Tom was flat on his back and hoping to ride out the storm of his illness. The doctor, who had come up from Adelaide, suggested it be treated as a bacterial infection like flu. He'd muttered it briefly, shaking his head, and Tom had just surfaced in that moment to hear it before drifting away again, voices blending until they sounded like murmurings on the edge of his world. Tom's teeth chattered, and his body shook. The fever finally broke on the 5th day after his arrival at the bush hospital. He could hear a woman's voice, felt a cool hand on his shoulder. His vision swam, finally focused, and he crossed the eyelids to slits. He thought he had answered as she called his name, but the sound he made was little more than a grunt. Soon enough he felt warm water on a soft rag held against his eyelids as she gently soaked away the 5 days of feverish sleep. Try again, she encouraged him. This time his eyes opened fully, but still he struggled to focus again. Hello, Tom. I'm one of the nurses at the Farina Hospital. My name's Dorothy. Dorothy, he croaked, never more glad to see a friendly face. I thought I was dying. We thought you might be too at first, but you're strong, Tom, and very determined to live, I'm pleased to say. Ah, welcome back, young man. Another voice, another face hovering above him. It was the doctor. Glad you've pulled through because we don't have much to work with in terms of what I think you're suffering from, which is, he didn't mean to sound rude, but it was hard to talk. I think you've had a dose of Q fever, only recently discovered in Queensland, fortunately by a colleague of mine who happened to share his findings with me. What is it? The doctor shrugged. A bacterial infection, a lot like flu. It's believed to be passed on to humans through animals. First thought of as a disease from the abattoirs, but people like you who are around animals a lot, perhaps a little bit low in health, or anyway, look, catch love. You're young and robust. You'll be up and around in no time. He looked towards the nurse. Lots of water, rest, and thin broth. Please, nurse. Get him moving as soon as possible. He tapped Tom's shoulder, said, Good luck, lad, and departed from Tom's bedside. Dorothy turned to Tom and gave him a beaming smile. You're going to feel weak, so don't try and do too much immediately. He nodded. How long has it been? He rasped. You were 2 days at the homestead, I gather, and then you were brought here. A week, I reckon. Bloody hell, he murmured. She grinned. Don't let sister hear you curse. Can I sit up? You can try. Here, let me help you. With some effort from the two of them, they managed to get Tom propped up against the pillow in the iron bed. He felt dizzy, but stayed patient, and the world stopped spinning after a moment. Right, you need to start drinking plenty of water, as the doctor says, Dorothy instructed, pointing to a pitcher and mug next to his bed on a small table. Start now, she added, handing him the mug, while I go and see about some broth for you. We've got to get your strength back up. Tom began drinking as she watched her patient carefully. It felt good to feel the water slipping down his throat. He noticed an older fellow sitting in a chair next to a nearby cot and tipped his head in his direction. Who's that? That's Jonesy. I haven't heard him called by any other name, although sister calls him Lord Jones, and it seems to amuse him. He's gravely ill. We're just keeping him as comfortable as we can. He loves to talk, if you're in the mood. She smiled kindly, squeezed his arm, and left. Tom looked at the bloke who was staring straight ahead. I'm Tom, he said. Jonesy didn't seem to register his presence. Hey, I'm Tom, he said louder. Heard you first time, the man growled. Dying, not deaf. Sorry. It's okay, mate, Jonesy replied, finally turning to look at him. I just don't feel ready to go, but it seems upstairs has other plans. He quipped and smiled without mirth. Glad you pulled through. Thanks. I have no idea where I've been for a week. They were pretty worried about you. Some bloke called Bill visited and told sister that he thought you'd lost the will to live. Tom shook his head. No, I lost a good man, a young one, to an accident in the shearing shed. So I heard. Took you bad. Tom nodded. I don't know how to do anything else but wool classing, and yet I don't feel like going back. I had to ring his brother and then write to his mother. Jonesy sighed. Yeah, you don't realise life is precious until it's gone or going. Did he have a large family? Tom nodded. 3 brothers and a sister, as I understand. Oh, well, that mother of his, she's got family to love and be loved. Tougher when it's an only child. Tom blinked bleakly, like me. I knew your father, you know. That caught Tom's attention. Until now, he'd been making conversation because he thought the nursing team would appreciate him chatting to the older man. But Jonesy's comment made him sit straighter. You did? Used to drive with him, and until my lungs stopped working. He's gone now, though, right? Tom nodded. Died 12 years back. He was a good man, your dad was. Not much of a father, as it turns out. Tom remarked, more to himself. Again, his companion proved he was not deaf. I suppose it will. If you walked in his shoes, you couldn't blame him. Tom wished he could shake how gloomy he felt. I do blame him, though. We only had each other, but we became like strangers after my mother died. No, I mean, you can't blame him because he wasn't your father, was he? But it wasn't posed as a question. As far as Jonesy was concerned, he was stating a known fact. Tom blinked at his companion. What are you talking about? Jonesy shrugged. Sorry, mate. Didn't mean to shock you. I thought you knew. Wait, no, that's not right. I don't think we're talking about the same man. My father was Vern Catchler. Yep, I know. I met you when you were a young tacker. Met your mother too. Now, she really was a sight for sore eyes. Vern certainly got lucky there. Tom felt momentarily lost. Either an insistent whistle was being blown somewhere or it was alarm deep inside. He could hear it, shrill and distressed. He didn't know how to respond. I thought he would have told you. He should have if he didn't. Tom slowly put his feet on the floor and moved until he was sitting on the edge of the bed. He shook his head slowly. Why would he have told you? Why would he have told you? I don't know, mate. Men talk, especially when you're far from home and in the middle of nowhere. And Vern liked a drink. He only mentioned it once, as I recall. Jonesy, tell me what you know. Tom stood with difficulty and padded over to his companion's cot. The dizziness loosened his resolve momentarily, but he held on, grabbed the side of Jonesy's iron bedstead before he reached for another chair and sat next to the older man. He wanted to look him square in the eye. I don't want to upset you, lad, the older man grumbled. They'll blame me if you sink into your thoughts again. I won't. I want to know. This isn't much. Your father was pretty full when he shared it. Tell me. He loved your mother to distraction. I know. I thought he cared about me too, his only son. I can't speak to that. He told me your mother came from a well-to-do family. Tom nodded. He'd known that. And she fell in love with some bloke. Jonesy continued. I can't remember what he did for a living. Some sort of traveller, not a salesman, but he might have been a musician or something like that. Either way, it didn't suit her family. According to Vern, she was forbidden from marrying him, and your father said they nearly locked her up to prevent her from trying to run away with him. They started making arrangements for her to become engaged to the right sort, but from what Vern said, your mother was not one to be pushed around. Jonesy began to cough. Bastard thing. He cursed. My lungs are shot, son. All of what Jonesy said was news to Tom, but somehow it was like finding missing jigsaw pieces, watching and feeling them slip into their correct spots to make sense of a bigger picture. He helped his companion to sip some water. Jonesy sighed his thanks. Where did she meet my father, do you know? That I do. Apparently they met at the Royal Adelaide show. He was there performing. What? You didn't know he was a wizard with a whip? Ah, yes, I did know that. He used to make me hold his burning cigarette and he'd crack it out on my fingers. I wet myself once. I was so frightened. Jonesy chuckled and it sounded like a drain emptying. But I didn't know he performed for others, Tom remarked. Maybe before your time, son. He did a circuit of the shows. Adelaide was his final one, and that's where he met your mother. She was in the audience with some friends who were clapping and cheering, he said, and she was like a radiant cheerleader, applauding just for him. All very romantic, I gather, because it was muddy. Isn't it always at that Adelaide show? And without permission, he picked up your mother and carried her over the puddles. He admitted to me that he fell in love with her the moment she started laughing in his arms, and before the next day was out, he had proposed. He was a good-looking man, Vern, and I can imagine your mother was taken by the cowboy showman that he was. We certainly were. He used to entertain us blokes all the time with his singing, harmonica playing, and whip cracking. I once bet him my week's wage he couldn't knock the ash off a cigarette in my mouth with his whip. You didn't. He suggested it, and I wanted his money. Jonesy laughed and got lost in another wet coughing fit. When he recovered, he continued, I didn't get my hands on his money, of course, and he knew I wouldn't before he took the bet. Your father snapped off that ash from 15 yards away as nearly as if he'd stepped up and cut it off with a knife. Even Tom had to smile, and you didn't wet yourself. I might have done worse, actually. Lucky my trousers were brown, eh? He had another coughing session before they shared a grin in memory of the man. How do I fit into this story, Jonesy? Ah, well, as his story went, your mother was in the family way when he married her. As Tom opened his mouth, Jonesy cut him off, pregnant with the other bloke's baby, qualified. But it made no difference to Vern. Apparently he was obsessed with your mother, wanted her so bad he agreed to raise another man's son as his own. When Vern told me the story, he started laughing at the storm in your mother's snooty family when she said she was going to marry this rough fellow from Crystal Brook in the southern Flinders Ranges. He reckoned none of her family had been further north than Prospect, which was just a few miles from the city. Anything further out to them was desert, uncharted land. He grinned at the thought. Vern said they were preparing to stop the wedding at all costs until she dropped the bomb that she was with child. He said that was it. They gave up on her after that, believing it was good riddance to all of them, and the problem she was posing for the family's reputation. Her parents, especially her mother, wanted nothing to do with her anymore, or the potential shame she would bring. Vern married her within the week and brought her to this very town. No one else ever knew you were the other bloke's boy. Tom wanted to deny it all, wanted to rage at Jonesy, and yet everything the older man had said fit. It explained so much of what he'd not understood while growing up. He took a breath, then spoke. I sensed that my mother found little to enjoy about her life out here except me and my father, but she never complained. Not about the hardships or the fact she had to work so hard. But from the moment my mother died, Dad changed towards me. I thought it was because he couldn't get past his grief. I was still so young, but he left me alone in the care of the station. I seemed so ruthless. He accepted jobs that took him as far from home as you can imagine, and for such long periods. I was passed from person to person. All the folks from the station looked out for me. I slept in with the station hand, ran odd jobs, learned to cook for them. The family at the homestead took pity on me, made sure I had clothes, shoes, that I was taken to school until I was about 14. By 15, I was a rouseabout. By 17, I was throwing wool, and by 18, skirting along the Gesser. Tom shook his head. And all the while my father was absent. He came home from time to time, but by then we really were strangers. When he took his last long trip, I was all grown up, and he was an old man and a sick one at that. Jonesy gave a shrug. We all make our choices, lad. So he never talked about me. His companion shook his head, apart from the one time when he was drunk. But you worked with him after my mother died. I did, and I agree. He was different after she passed away. He didn't sing, didn't entertain us with his whip or showmanship. And if he played his harmonica, they were sad songs around the fire. The cancer took him fast. I think your father welcomed death, to be honest. I think he did too. I hate him now for keeping the truth a secret. Josie gave a sound of disgust. Don't waste the energy, lad. Your mother loved you, and Vern provided. He did the best he could. He loved her with all his heart, and most of him died when she died. When she did. The best he could, Tom repeated, sounding incredulous. Yes, Jonesy replied, under the circumstance. Another man might have been stronger, less jealous, more capable of showing love to someone else's child. But Vern's shortcomings haven't hurt you. I'm guessing you're strong of mind and character. You're independent, capable of earning well for yourself. You're not suggesting I should thank him. No, I'm not doing that. But we all make choices in life. Just accept he made his as your mother made hers, and you'll make yours. You wouldn't have been any better off for knowing the truth, I'll wager. Jonesy took another long drink and then took a while, clearing his throat. A wheeze now arriving. But I doubt you'll have a better life if your mother had stayed with her posh family. They'd have punished her daily and treated you with their sneers of disappointment. At least with Vern, your mother found some measure of happiness, and you probably grew up happier and more in control of your life than if you'd been raised alone by her within the house. They say ignorance is bliss, don't they? Tom nodded. Well, then move on. He'd been gone 12 years, and if he wasn't a good father, then you lose nothing in the knowledge that he wasn't your father anyway. That's a strange logic, Jonesy. Yeah, well, a dying man can think that way, lad. Get on with your life. Make it the best you can be. Find a woman and love her. Start your own family and be the best father you can be. And make up for that shortcoming of the man who helped raise you. The neatness of Jonesy's advice appealed to Tom, but could he let it go that his mother and father had upheld a lie to their deaths? Jonesy leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and Tom realized he'd slipped into sleep. He returned to his cot and stared at the ceiling. The more he prodded at what he'd learned, the more he felt like the truth, and the further he felt himself drifting from the compass of his life, which had always pointed to paradise on Wichelina Station and life as a world-class song. He thought about school and how proud his mother was that he was doing well in his spelling, dictation, essay, and grammar. His teacher at the time, Miss Napier, had sent home a report that Tom was excelling in geography and arithmetic. For no reason that he could fathom, carpentry was his favourite subject. He decided his pleasure in it was the challenge of and the precision required to make perfect joints for the timber shapes he crafted. He made his mother 3 fine vessels, one for her sewing, another for her outdoor tools, and had been working on a new box for the kindling when she died. He liked building her practical gifts. He recalled now how, even at his young age, he designed the box more of a cradle, really, to stand above ground so the sand could blow through it, rather than pile up on one side during dust storms. He looked at the shadows on the hospital ceiling through the mosquito net that was not yet in use and remembered how he'd completely lost his interest in his schoolwork after her death. There was no one to impress with his high marks and academic tasks. Within a year, he'd found himself cutting up newspaper into rough 6-inch squares to be used in the school's pit toilets. That had been his punishment for not doing his homework. And then Wichelina rescued him. He'd waved her to school and joined the station full time. He'd known no other life, but suddenly that life felt false. He knew he was probably being irrational. Perhaps the fever was making him think unreasonably. But Jonesy's revelation was still hurting. It hadn't been just an emotional jolt. It felt now like a stabbing pain in his throat, as though he wanted to howl his despair to the skies. But that wasn't his way. He kept his hurt tight within. Here's your broth, Tom. Do you feel like trying some? The cheerful nurse was back. Did you speak with Jonesy? Tom nodded. Yes, but not for long, he lied. Didn't say much. Ah, well, it would have brightened his day to have conversation with someone who wasn't a nurse. She smiled. It hadn't brightened his day, though. In fact, it had cast a shadow over his already darkened thoughts. A notion that had been niggling before his illness and had been let out to roam his mind again. Jonesy's truth had unleashed it fully. Leave it, he said. You've always wanted to see what was beyond the desert. Go find out. Thanks for listening.